Hey everyone, my name is Braden and this is All You Can Board. We're here with another Marvel Champions Hero preview. Today we're going to be taking a look at X-23, the most recent announcement from Fantasy Flight, and we're going to waste no time getting into it here. Let's just get into it, shall we? Here we go, starting with, of course, with the alter ego side. We're looking at Laura Kinney, hand size of 6, hit points of 10, everything very standard there, but a recovery of 6, which is massive, and we're going to see exactly why that is. And she's going to obviously have some similarities to Wolverine as expected, but she has her own little twist on it as well. But again, we're going to get into that. So, mutant, obviously, with the keyword, Shink setup. Put X-23's claws into play, which we'll take a look at shortly. And also on here is action. Shuffle either the Honey Badger ally or the Sisterly Bond event from your discard pile, specifically your discard pile, into your deck. Draw a card. So this ability or action will come into play, I think, very often. This is one that you're going to obviously want to be doing a lot of the time, as much as you can. And we're going to see the reason why, because Honey Badger plays an essential part to this kit for Laura Kinney / X-23. So let's get into the hero side of things now. X-23, stat line, 2 thwart, 1 attack, 2 defense, X-Force as well. Does not have the mutant trait on this one, though, on this side. So one thing to note there. But, of course, has the X-Force, which is to be expected. This is going to be themed around the X-Force time when it's released. So makes sense. So we have Living Weapon. Oh, and I should say hand size of 5, hit points of 10, of course, again there too. So nothing out of the ordinary. We lose a card for going into hero form. Still a typical hand size of 5. Attack of 1, which is a little bit lower, but we're going to see the different ways that she's able to boost her attack. So we've got Living Weapon, response. After X-23 takes any amount of damage, ready X-23. This is going to be great for attacking, obviously, because you're going to get to attack multiple times, but also defending. So if you defend an attack and still end up taking damage from that, then you're going to be able to be ready to go on the offensive when it becomes your turn. So this is a really interesting way to, you're going to be paying your hit points by taking damage so that you can ready, but you can only do this once per phase. So keep that in mind. But not once per round. So you can do it on the villain phase of this, obviously, too. So very interesting. And there are, again, a couple cards here that are going to play into her kit, which allows her to take damage and either generate resources or do a few other things, too. So an important ability to take note of. So let's move on. Of course, we want to see her claws, which come into play with her at the very start as part of setup. So this is X-23's claws. It's a permanent hero action. Exhaust X-23's claws. Take 2 damage. It's a hefty amount of damage for 10 hit points. X-23 gets +2 attack to the end of the round. So that's going to boost her attack up to +3 and give her an extra ready if you've already used her attack. Now, if you're boosting her attack and you are attacking, you probably want to do this first. It just depends on if you have another way to proc her readying style. But if you don't, and this is the only way that you're going to be, that X-23 is going to be taking damage, you may either want to thwart first and then do this to go attack. So you've kind of got a little bit of a Swiss Army knife. You have a few options to your disposal, whether you want to thwart first or then go for an attack beforehand, and maybe you do want to boost the attack by using the claws first thing out. So an interesting way to increase her damage for sure, and we're getting a +2 from that. Okay, let's get to our signature ally, Honey Badger. 1 thwart, 1 attack, 1 consequential damage on each, 2 health and 2 cost. Very cheap ally, super cheap. And is extremely helpful, and also plays into future cards. A lot of these cards tie into each other, right? So we're looking at hero response, after Honey Badger takes any amount of damage, ready X-23. So if you're going to use Honey Badger as a chump blocker, or even you may be even to take 2 hits even from like a minion for dealing 1 damage to you that you know is coming your way, Honey Badger can be a great resource to get a bunch of readies out of X-23. Or say you've exhausted from a defend with X-23, and she didn't take any damage, but then you chump block with Honey Badger, you get that ready back with her too. So a nice little extra bonus there if after Honey Badger takes any amount of damage. And that goes, of course, with consequential damage. So you get an attack, you're exhausted, you've readied them, or you've readied X-23 using her ability, you exhaust again, Honey Badger comes in here. Well, now guess what? You've got another ready from X-23. So that's 3 readies already from just with having Honey Badger in play. So, I mean, it's super powerful, obviously, but Honey Badger also has extra utility beyond just being able to ready X-23. And well, again, we'll see that in a couple cards here coming up. So let's move on to Clawmaster. 1 cost, max 1 per round. It's an event card. Hero action until the end of the round. X-23 gains +2 attack, and her attacks gain overkill while Honey Badger is in play. Now, obviously, you want to be playing this while Honey Badger is in play, because again, you're potentially getting 3 extra attacks. So that's 6 extra damage out of that, instead of just maybe the regular 4 extra damage, which still is a lot of damage. So you're going to be able to swing very hard a lot of different times. Rather than just swinging hard once with 1 big attack, you kind of get multiple attacks here. So maybe you're pinging off a tough status card right off the bat, and then you start swinging with X-23 with her other 2 attacks. You're going to get some damage through, most likely. And there is a little bit of versatility by having her ready in and out. So that's Claw Mastery. Again, only once per round. So you're only going to be able to boost it by +2, which makes me think that there's obviously more than 1 copy of Claw Master in the pre-constructed, or in the cards for X-23. All right, we have another 1 cost event, very cheap events here. Regenerative Longevity. Superpower, which means it can be used with Deft Focus. Action, heal a total of 4 damage from your identity and Honey Badger. So Honey Badger, if you're able to boost up their hit points, which again, it would be fantastic if you can Voltron them a little bit to stay around, to take a few hits, again, to add to those readies, rather than just either chump blocking and taking a consequential damage and then piecing out from there. But you're healing a total of 4 damage, and you can choose where you want to heal that damage. You're going to be taking a lot of damage probably from X-23 to get those extra readies, and a lot of that healing is probably going to go that way, but this is a nice little card. Again, it's very cheap. You get some cheap healing, and there's versatility to it, whether you want to use it for Honey Badger or X-23 for herself. So a nice card, and again, very cheap. Speaking of cheap, we got a 0 cost event, Sisterly Bond. This is Hero Interrupt, and if you remember, this Sisterly Bond card was the one that was at the very beginning in the Alter Ego side, that you can choose between Honey Badger or this getting shuffled back into your deck. So this is a Hero Interrupt. When Honey Badger thwarts or attacks, add X-23's matching power to Honey Badger's power for this use. So this doesn't say the starting value of X-23's, let's say attack value. This just says whatever the value is currently, basically. For X-23, say you are attacking with Honey Badger, well, now you get to add on X-23's attack on top of that attack. So now that 1 consequential damage, you're getting so much more value out of it, because you're now adding X-23's attack, who's hopefully been boosted through one of the previous cards that we've looked at, right? Through her claws, or through her Claw Mastery card here as well. So an interesting card. Again, very cheap to execute, but it requires you to have Honey Badger in play. That's going to be the main thing here, is making sure that Honey Badger is definitely in play so that you're able to obviously get this card going. But super powerful to add on that extra damage from X-23. Next one we have here is our support card. Is this our first support card already for X-23? I think it is. This is Sisterhood. Action, exhaust Sisterhood and discard an X-23 card from your hand. Search your deck and discard pile for Honey Badger and add her to your hand. A super powerful card. And again, this is one that's going to stay with you as a support. So one that you're obviously going to want to get out early, like any other kit card, because anytime that you have Honey Badger into play and you can slap her down, you're getting tons of extra damage and you're getting more use out of your kit cards too. So this is a really, really strong card, especially since if you haven't had a chance to get Honey Badger out yet, and this card comes up before you get Honey Badger, well, you can pull her out from your deck and start playing her, and then you're able to utilize your Alter Ego ability once Honey Badger is completely gone here too. So Sisterhood is going to be an essential, I think, for you to get out in games that you are successful in. It's really good. Even 2 costs is not super steep. I can't see it, like 3 would be way too much, I think, for this. So I think it's sitting at a good spot, especially it being a support for you, and one that maybe you're not going to use obviously all the time when Honey Badger is in play, but I think will be essential for helping X-23 kind of spiral out of control a little bit. Next, we've got our upgrade card here, 2 cost. Pain Tolerance. It's a superpower again. Response after you play an X-23 card, including this one, heal 1 damage from your identity. Another big upgrade card, again, that you're going to want to get out early, because anytime you're throwing down an X-23 card, you know, Honey Badger, whatever it is, you're going to be healing 1 damage from your identity. This is just a response. There is no exhaust this card, nothing. So you're going to be doing this over and over again. It's super good. Like, this is an unreal card to be able to heal that damage that maybe you are taking to ready yourself. Yeah, there's not much more to say to this card. It's just that good. It's just that good. It's really good. It's a really, really good card. Being able to heal at all here, you can just tell how essential healing is for X-23 just by looking at her recovery of 6 in her Alter Ego. So having an extra heal on hand, money. Next up, our next upgrade, 1 cost, Grim Resolve. This is resource, exhaust this card and take 1 damage. Generate a wild resource. This is an extra wild a resource generation for X-23. I think the only one that has been revealed so far, and you know, pretty straightforward. Again, allows her to ready again by only taking 1 damage, which is key. If you can getting this out early allows you to kind of build up that extra resource, allows you to play other cards, especially since so far a lot of her events are pretty cheap. This is very valuable when it comes to her, especially only having to take 1 damage to then re-ready too. Very helpful when it comes to dishing out damage with X-23. So Grim Resolve, a fantastic card. And here we've got a 0 cost upgrade called Puncture Wound. This is attached to an enemy that X-23 or Honey Badger attacked this turn, so has already attacked. Attached enemy gets -1 attack. Forced response, after the player phase begins, discard this card and deal 3 damage to the attached enemy. So this is basically like a ticking time bomb, or it's called Puncture Wound. Maybe it's kind of bleeding out, right? So by the time it gets back to your turn, you know, they've lost a lot of blood or whatever mechanical fluid, whoever you're facing at that time. Their wounds are starting to affect them more, and they get dealt 3 damage when your turn comes back around. So a delayed response to this, but for 0 cost, really is not bad whatsoever. And this gets attached to, of course, the enemy and not you, because that would be bad. So yeah, Puncture Wound, good resource to damage ratio, obviously. The only thing that you're really paying for is just the time amount it takes to inflict that. So yeah, really nice. Okay, that ends it for our X-23 cards. A lot of really cool cards here. And now we're getting into our aggression cards. So this first one here is Boom Boom. 1 thwart, 1 attack, 1 consequential damage for each, 3 cost, and 2 health. So a small health pool, but there's reasons for this. X-Force as well. So the action here says, exhaust Boom Boom, add 1 boom counter to her. Then you may discard Boom Boom to deal 1 damage to each enemy for each boom counter on her. So this is going to work basically like a wind-up clock, where you are winding each round 1 damage and stacking that damage. There's no limit to her, what you can do. But I think where Boom Boom is going to fall a little bit short is going to be when you're taking indirect damage and having to place damage. Potentially where, and hopefully you're obviously choosing where the damage is going, but with 2 health, there's going to be not a ton of flexibility with Boom Boom when it comes to that. So you're going to be sitting there waiting for this thing to basically like charge up and then determine when you're going to be able to just set it alight. What's great is it deals damage to each enemy. So in multiplayer, this is going to do a whack load of damage across the board. If you have a ton of minions in play across the board, again, it's going to be phenomenal in that case. If you can keep her alive, keep charging it, say you get 3 damage on them as you go, boom. It speaks for itself. So can be really good, situational for sure. You may just do one, like when you play it, you'll either attack or thwart once. It's really not there for that. It's really for the ability of what you're getting. You're obviously not using this as a chump blocker. It's going to be for the big explosion is what you're looking for. Speaking of big explosions, I don't know why I said that. We'll be looking at Rictor, because an earthquake's a big explosion? I think so. A 3 cost ally here, 3 health, 1 thwart, 2 attack with an asterisk on it, 1 consequential damage for each. And after each attack from Rictor, we have response. After Rictor attacks, discard the top card of your deck and deal 1 damage to each minion engaged with you for each resource on the discarded card. So the most that you're probably going to be doing here, depending if you're using aggression with Captain Marvel, you may get 3 damage out of it, but you're losing your 3 resource card. Mostly you're probably going to be averaging just over 1 resource per draw, right? So you're going to be doing 1 damage across the board. Again, this is going to depend on who you're facing. Ultron, a classic example, right? 1 health bots, fantastic. You kill a bunch of them. This just helps mitigate your board state and kind of keep things a little bit under control. The 2 attack is really nice on top of that as well. So you're already doing 2 damage plus another one, which is really nice, and 3 health. So a decent stat line here from Rictor, I think, across the board, and a good way to help kind of level the playing field. Although usually aggression allies, because they're attacking a lot, obviously you want to get damage onto the villain, but they can still have that versatility of taking out minions. But this helps take out a wide swath and kind of an AoE kind of style too. So that is Rictor. All right, let's move up to our first aggression upgrade now. This is 1 cost. Now I'm mad. It says play under any player's control, max 1 per player. While your hero's remaining hit points are less than half your hero's starting hit points, so in this case of X-23, if they go below 5 are less than half. So 4 or lower, your hero gets +1 attack and -1 thwart. So that 2 thwart, 1 attack now becomes 1 thwart, 2 attack, which we know can be really good. Again, we're kind of inducing rage and taking damage, so we potentially could use our resource generation to deal us damage. Again, any ways to deal us damage and boost our attack for a big swing can be really important here. Or maybe you're already under 3 damage, or you're under 5 health, and now this card comes into play, and now you start going to town, and then you flip to alter ego, recover, and then if you're at 4, you come back up to 6, or you're at 3, you come back up to 9 now. So again, all cards are situational cards. This one can be a little bit dangerous, I think, with X-23. Getting in that 4 to 4, I think, is a little bit more safe. 3 is starting to get a little bit worrisome, depending on what your board state is. But you can, if you have the final blows and you need that extra 1 attack, and you get 3 readies out of it, it's super worth it. All right, we've got a 0-cost event, Moment of Triumph. Hero response: after you attack and defeat an enemy, heal 1 damage from your hero for each point of excess damage dealt to that enemy by that attack. So obviously, if you're pumping in damage to the villain, this probably won't apply unless you are defeating them and going over that damage threshold. Then that would apply for here. This is probably going to be mostly in the case of defeating minions, though. So if you have bigger swings of attack, which X-23, for the most part, yes, you're going to have maybe +4 attack around there. You're probably not going to be boosting up more than that. So maybe you're swinging for 5. But if you have cards in other decks that are for, you swing for +9 damage in 1 attack instead of just multiple attacks, well, this is going to potentially heal you for, let's say, 8 or more than that, right? So if you need to heal but you want to stay in hero form, this could be a good way to kind of stay there and be able to be a little bit more tanky, which I think this card will be super valuable as well, especially for Wolverine, maybe even who pays using his hit points for resources. So this is a good way. Again, maybe for him, again, with boosted attack, you can really go to town to get a heal off of, or maybe use X-23's. One of their attacks is just to heal you, basically. So some good versatility here. I think this card, I'm anticipating this card will see a good chunk of from it. Well, the only thing, again, is it's going to be mainly for minions, too, for excess damage. So I'm going to walk that statement back actually a little bit too. So yeah, that's Moment of Triumph. And here we go with the second last aggression card. This is the Direct Approach, and an interesting one too. A 1-cost upgrade. It's a tactic card attached to a non-permanent side scheme, which again applies to player side schemes. Limit 1 per side scheme. Attached scheme gains Assault, which is a new keyword that's kind of introduced here. I think it's a new keyword. Correct me if I'm wrong, though. But I don't remember it coming out previously. But anywho, besides the point, I'm sure it has maybe. Attached scheme gains Assault. Basic thwarts against the scheme use attack instead of thwart. So if our attack value is much higher, and we play this on a side scheme, again, that is non-permanent, so not the main one, then you get the option of, you are required to use your attack to remove the threat off of the side scheme, which is a good option for aggression allies. Again, giving them more options to get rid of thwart, which again, they kind of needed introducing player side schemes into, because then aggression would kind of feel a little bit nerfed, I think. This is going to be an essential one if you're going to be using a lot of player side schemes in your decks. You're probably going to want to have the direct approach here to help you really to bolster your thwarting efforts while playing an aggression hero at the same time. An interesting one. And speaking of player side schemes, let's take a look at our one here that comes with X-23. This is Keep Them Busy, a 1-cost player side scheme, victory 0, assault. So it already has the assault keyword built into it. It makes sense. It's an aggression player side scheme. You're putting on 3 threat per player in the game. And it says, when defeated, the player who defeated this scheme removes 5 threat per player from the main scheme. So this is a way to, you kind of get a bolstered threat removal from this. You get a thwart from this. You're kind of removing 3 if you have a good amount of attack. You're using that to get rid of it, and it's kind of like a semi-assault. But you're also paying a card to get this into play to be able to do it too. So 5 threat, we'll have to see how that kind of plays out, but it's certainly a lot in some cases, and can really turn the tides in this case too, and allows you to take this out with your attack, which again gives you that versatility. So an interesting player side scheme, and I think we're going to see a lot more of assault. I would say mainly for those obviously aggression heroes that we're going to be using. Okay, let's move on to now our next basic side scheme that we're getting out of here, which comes linked with 4 of the next cards that we're going to be looking at on top of this. So this is the only card that's in play. This kind of sets 4 other cards aside, but that are still in your deck. This is Specialized Training. 1 cost, player side scheme, victory 0. When defeated, each player who does not control a specialization upgrade, which we'll see what that means, chooses 1 set-aside specialization upgrade and puts it into play under their control. These upgrades are quite strong, very, very strong. And this is a 5 threat per player on here. So something that you're going to be dealing with. Obviously, you're going to be choosing when to put this into play. The direct approach is great to place onto something like this if you're playing aggression to get rid of that thwart, but using your attack instead. You get rid of that quickly, and you get immediately a bonus upgrade of your choosing, one of them. So let's take a look at what these potential upgrades are, shall we? So our first one here is Combat Specialist. Again, these get put into play, so you're not paying the cost for the card. You're getting this put into play for you right away. And again, that linked keyword means that it's linked to the previous player side scheme. So this one is your hero gets +1 attack. Fantastic. Hero response: after your hero performs a basic attack, exhaust this card, draw a card. Bananas. So good. Unbelievable card. Getting a card draw from just attacking once, especially with aggression heroes, super good. With a +1 attack as well, kind of unreal, actually. And a lot of these are unreal, but you're also spending the extra time to take, right? Like, you have to think of that. This isn't just like you play this card. You have to draw the player side scheme. You have to take it out with 5 threat per player. Then you finally get this, but this is still really, really, really strong. Super strong card. Let's take a look at the other one. So we're going to see a theme here. This is the defense kind of version of this. +1 defense. After your hero performs a basic defense, exhaust this card, draw a card. So we're boosting our base stats, and we're drawing a card from there too. So we're basically essentially increasing our hand limit by 1. Phenomenal. Frontline Specialist, the same thing, very similar. Instead, we get 4 hit points, which for X-23 is also really strong. After your identity takes damage from an enemy attack, specifically an enemy attack, not ourselves, that would be that would go insano mode on X-23 if it was any damage. But from an enemy attack, you draw a card. Same kind of thing. So if we take a little bit of extra damage from an enemy, we get to draw a card because of it. Again, really, really good. You can take an extra hit from it. And then finally, Surveillance Specialist. We get +1 thwart after your hero performs a basic thwart. Guess what? Draw a card. You get a card. Come on. Again, really, really strong, especially if we're playing in multiplayer here. You know, this is going to... the versatility that you're getting and allowing every player to have one of these upgrades is really, really good. Especially if you're playing, obviously, in different aspects and you're very varied. Guess what? You're going to want to be, I think, playing the side scheme. And we'll see what the trade-off is going to be. If it's going to be too much of a time sink that you're going after that player side scheme rather than dealing with your board state. If your board state's in a good spot, maybe an early game, you're going to be able to lay down that player side scheme and then get those upgrades into play and really start snowballing. So, yeah, really interesting kit from X-23. Laura Kinney as well. Overall, I'm actually really excited to see what she has in store and what other kind of aggression cards we get from her. Being able to ready is very similar to Quicksilver, and I know that is one of Dylan's favorite heroes to play, so I think he's going to really, really like X-23. I'd be curious to see if like there's like maybe even doing like a duo of like X-23 and Wolverine at the same time, how that would play out. Maybe it's too much aggression. Who knows? Too much aggression? Who's thought of such a thing? But yeah, really interesting cards. Getting Honey Badger into play seems like an essential as well. Of course, we all, as always, would love to know your thoughts. What do you think about it? If you want to talk to us about X-23 or anything else Marvel Champions, of course, you can join us on our Discord, which we have constant discussions about the latest heroes coming out. Really, really curious to see what your thoughts are on this. And yeah, that's pretty much it for today, guys. That's X-23 coming out later this year. We'll have patience, though. We'll get to her eventually. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we're going to see ya next time.